Hey, I'm Mike Salemi, and in today's video, I'm going to teach you how you can get more out of the kettlebell overhead press. So the kettlebell overhead press, in my opinion, is a lift that oftentimes either gets overlooked, oversimplified, or just simply taken for granted in a lot of strength and conditioning programs. It is a fairly simple movement, but that being said, it's not necessarily easy, especially if you focus on a lot of the details that I'm going to share with you now that you can really heighten the potential that you'll experience when doing this lift. So what I wanted to do is go over two key positions in the overhead press, the rack position, the overhead lockout position, but then I also want to show you a beginner's variation of the movement as well as a more advanced variation, the straddle press, which I absolutely love. And it's not only going to challenge your overhead pressing strength, but it's also going to show you if you've got any restrictions in the body, specifically, for example, the muscles on the backside of the legs, the hamstrings, adductors, etc., but also the mobility of your thoracic spine. So it's a great movement. But to start off, what I want to go over is two key foundational positions, how you start and how you end the overhead press. So what we're going to do to start is I'm going to begin in a half kneeling position. This is a beginner's version of the overhead press. It's a great fundamental step because we're more fixing the lower body, we're lowering our body down to the floor more, we're a little bit more stable, and we're taking out a little bit more of the lower half so we can focus on the upper body, which is what I want to detail right now for you. So right now my right knee is down, left knee is up. I'm going to reach down with my right hand, reach over with the left, cheat curl the weight into the rack position. Now a few key tips on the rack. Hand position. Feel free to use your other hand to adjust your hand through the kettlebell window so that when you do so, this handle dips into a 45-ish degree angle into the heel of the palm. And if you're looking at me from a front angle, the wrist is fully straight. Then you'll wrap over, grab nice and tight. From this position, the thumb needs to be in the center line of the chest or towards the center line, the shoulder to press down, and then I want you to notice how the kettlebell sits in this V or this basket. This is nice and solid in a tight rack position, and this is exactly where I want you to start every single overhead press. Once you're ready to press, you're going to go up into the overhead position. Now from here, this position can be called overhead lockout or just simply fixation. It's called fixation because the kettlebell should not be moving. It should be fixated in this position. To do that effectively and safely, what I need you to do is really focus on locking out this elbow, keeping the bicep by the ear, and then what I like to do is I like to make sure my thumb is pointed in the back direction. If your thumb is pointed here towards the side, this is what we call internal rotation of the shoulder, and that's pretty unstable. And oftentimes what you'll see is people's elbow bend, and that's not the position that we want. So lock the elbow out, point the thumb towards the back direction, and then one more piece for the shoulder. From here, I want you to relax your shoulder down, and then I want you to put a little bit of upward pressure into the kettlebell. What that's going to do is that's going to increase the space in the shoulder. So as you're building strength, you're also doing so in a more open position here. Okay? To lower down, do so under control, all the way back down to the rack position, and then lower to the floor. So as it relates to that half kneeling version, those are just the big 2 points that I want to go over, the rack and the overhead. Now to progress this is a little bit or quite a bit more advanced, but I would work into it slowly, and I'll show you some modifications on how you can adjust this movement based off of if you're pretty restricted in your flexibility and so on. So let me just go ahead and show the straddle overhead press. So from here, you're in the straddle position. This is what it's going to look like. Way more challenging than that half kneeling variation. We took out the lower body completely. We challenged the flexibility of the lower body as well as the mobility and flexibility of our thoracic spine, of my thoracic spine. That was really a challenging movement. So for this, the first thing you got to make sure is that you can get into a good position. So depending on your level of flexibility, essentially what I want to do, my legs are fully straight, I flex my toes back, I push through the heels to create tension in the lower body. My goal and my objective is to maintain that tension throughout. Then as you're maintaining that tension, you need to posture up as much as you can. Ears on top of the shoulders, on top of the hips. Not leaning forward, not leaning back. Another key tip on this movement is when you're pressing, one of the first things that's going to want to happen, especially if you have limits, especially in your T-spine, your middle back region, when you press, oftentimes the ribs want to flare. So you got to do your best to engage your abs a little bit, which is going to drop your sternum, your ribs, or your breastbone down, and then try to maintain that during the press. Okay, now, as you're doing it, rack position is the exact same that we went over earlier, lockout position the exact same. The first modification to this movement, if you aren't able to do it like I'm showing it here, just see if you can bend your knees. Okay, you're going to loosen up the muscles on the back side of the legs, and that's going to help you get into a better position. If you can't do this type of press, or just bend your knees slightly, and feel free to adjust your feet, you don't need to go into a super wide straddle. Just sit on a box, you can do that, or go back to the half kneeling overhead press. But one kind of thing that I would say would be really helpful as you're drilling this movement or preparing for it, really work your pancake stretch. So you can set the kettlebell here out in front. Once again, flex the feet back, push through the heels, posture up as much as you can. And then what I want you to do is just lean your body forward, but make sure you don't round your back. So you have to posture up. You can give yourself a little pull, and then I just want you to breathe. Okay, this could be maybe 30 seconds before you do the movement, or you can do this at the end of training, and this will be just a great flexibility exercise for you to do. Then once you feel a little bit more comfortable here, what you can do is grab a PVC pipe, grab a towel, and just work on getting in the position, or even just without anything, pressing up and then pulling down. Trying to create activation through the arms all the way through the press, and then pulling down. But the most important thing as you're doing this movement is that you do your best to keep the ribs down and set, so your ribs are right over your pelvis, okay? There's no flaring, but also no leaning back or no leaning forward. So I would do maybe about 10 reps, creating tension all the way down, tension all the way up. Then once you've done anywhere from 6 to 10 there, shake it out, okay, or take as much rest as you need, then go into your overhead press. So then I'd come here. Whew. And those are some key tips on how you can maximize and get more out of your overhead press, focusing on the rack position, the overhead lockout position, and then depending on your level, you can do something like the half kneeling overhead press as a beginner or a regression, working your way gradually and slowly into the straddle press. I hope you enjoyed this video and it supports you in getting so much more out of your overhead press. If there's other videos that you'd like me to create, please do let me know in the comments. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.